Entrepreneurs on born that brew. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me and our guests, and this way we can get this incredible content out to more people. Today, we have yet another great episode lined up for you. My guest and I today actually haven't officially met. We chatted back and forth via email to get this podcast scheduled. I've seen him speak in person at a few different events and very familiar with this company, but really excited to learn more about him and have him share his journey with you all today. His company has an incredible booth set up at different conferences that I've been at as well. So if you ever see them out there, you will definitely not be able to miss that. My guest today is Russ Perry. Russ is the founder and CEO of Design Pickle, which is the world's largest and most successful flat service rate creative service agency. Under his leadership, Design Pickle has grown from 2 members to over 700 globally and created over a millions different of creative requests. Russ, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And I think we're well approaching 2 million by now. So that's a little bit of an outdated fact, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we'd love to get started here, Russ, just kind of getting a little bit of background on you and your entrepreneurial journey. So kind of talk to us about the very beginning, how you got started, and then where things are at today with Design Pickle and anything else you have going on.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a pretty classic entrepreneurial story. Actually, prior to Design Pickle, I had run 2 different but similar branding and design agencies, and I did not do a very good job. It was something that I was, fresh out of college, trying to figure out not only life but business. And when I started, I couldn't even tell you what a P&L was, or really the idea that you're supposed to even make money in a business. So I was really missing some fundamental concepts there, but did my best. And towards the latter end of that career, actually acquired and partnered with an amazing firm down in Argentina. And for a born and raised Arizona guy, it was like I had fallen into just this whole new world, realizing that rather sheepishly, there's a pretty big market out there. There's lots of people who do design, lots of people who do content. I'm not America's not the only one. And we developed a really great relationship. And I learned a ton just about the world of design outside of America and just really how many talented people there were. I didn't think that was going to carry on with me when I closed my agency. We decided to part ways pretty amicably. It was just a business that wasn't really working or scaling. We had made every mistake in the book. I mean, we were a non-repeatable, high ticket, very, very nuanced branding firm that focused on non-sexy technology companies. So it was like, could we pick any more obstacles as far as success goes? So once we parted ways, I started consulting. I always joke that that's what unemployed entrepreneurs do, is they consult. And I got into a lot of different jobs. And for me, it was at that time just about, how do I make ends meet? How do I pay my bills? How do I take care of my family? And when I had kind of let the dust settle from my blitz of new business and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I was faced with really quite a pickle, pun intended, around my time. And the main thing was that a few of my clients were in office. So I would go to their offices 1 or 2 days a week. But when I was there, I was kind of neglecting the rest of my clients. I wasn't able to support them, wasn't able to do what they needed. I was just basically like a marketing assassin to kind of do whatever. And so out of that pain point, I created a system for clients to at least get some work done while I was unavailable. This was the design work, the production work, the marketing graphics for online trade shows, whatever you needed. And I did it really mainly just so that I wouldn't have to be up so late at night working, because otherwise I would come home, take care of all of their requests, and I was getting no sleep. I was super, super, super burnt out. So this way things could kind of move along. And so this system was like as basic as it gets: an email inbox, couple contractors managing it, getting started on the designs. And so then when I would get off work, I would check out what was going on. And instead of sending files at 2 a.m., I was sending them at 10 p.m. This thing took on a life of its own, and it started to grow, and the clients started using it more and more because they realized, wow, if I email Russ, things take a while. If I email the system, they get done a lot faster. And finally, at one point, one of my clients that came into his office after a few days of being out, and he just thanked me. He's like, hey, thanks for those trade shows. It was actually business cards, believe it or not. It was like the most basic graphic antique ever. And he said, thanks for those business cards. And I just said, you got it, Josh, no problem. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And lo and behold, my team had took it upon themselves to send the designs directly to the client. They're like, this is so basic. This is so easy. Russ doesn't even need to look at these. Like we know 100% that this is right. And so they sent it along, and that's when the light bulb moment happened to say, I need this sort of on-demand design service. It's kind of working itself. I don't really need to get in the middle of it. I wonder if my other clients could use this and or future clients. And so I was deep into startup books and podcasts, listening to shows like this, thinking about what am I going to do and how am I going to build my next business. And so the idea started to roll, and worked on it for about 3 or 4 months, tested it, started to push all my clients onto it, started to stop doing a lot of other work, which was a hard decision. Was like I was no longer doing strategic work. I was just focused on one thing, which for me was like revolutionary, considering I had always done a million things. And eventually in January 2015, the brand was done. The website was done. Design Pickle launched. I think our first month we had like 31 or 32 clients. And from that day, it's been the same value proposition, flat rate graphic design services. So starting at around $1,000 a month, you get a designer every day, system driven. So you put in the request, they're delivered. It's super process oriented, and it's been nonstop from there. Just again, staying super, super focused on that same thing and scaling it along the way.
Love that. And so when you're talking about your journey from doing multiple things to like really just like niching down and staying in your lane, I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs get, that shiny object syndrome. And it's really tough to just like, hey, I'm going to go all eggs in one basket. You talked about it being obviously a struggle, but talk to us a little bit about like what you were going through with that. Because obviously I'm sure you were turning away probably a little bit more money and opportunities to kind of do your own thing to really focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I think of when you ask that question is that focus is inversely correlated to scarcity. So if I am not feeling filled, I am struggling, I tend to have very terrible focus. And if I'm feeling very filled, then, then I have really great focus. Actually, it might not be inversely. It might be directly correlated to scarcity. So less and less, more and more. Anyway, so the point is that like, I had always struggled with that. And I even think today in some areas of my life, I struggle with that. And for many entrepreneurs, especially when you're getting going, like there's nothing more rewarding than a client. Like there's like no further validation than when you're like you feel like you're on the right path. But if you don't have the discipline to know your lane, what ends up happening is you get yourself very spread thin across a lot of different asks, a lot of different requests, a lot of different things. And it depends on your industry, because if you're selling a software that works a certain way, that is just the way it works, then it's a little bit easier to stay focused versus a services company where, let's say you do sales enablement or you do marketing consulting. Well, that can have a lot of different hats and be a lot of different things to a lot of different companies. So at Design Pickle, I sort of artificially engineered focused out of the gates by not doing all kinds of design. So prior, I did everything. You wanted a mobile app, we'd figure it out. You wanted a website, cool. You wanted a HubSpot implementation, let's do it. And this way, when DP, we just said, look, we're going to do production design. We're going to create the content the business needs. But if you want to sit down at a coffee shop and talk about brand strategy and, like think about your YouTube ad campaigns and do all this stuff, like that's not for us. So I knew I had to focus by the very structure of my business. And then from there, it is a challenge. And I would say that the first 7 months, I was also still consulting because I couldn't pay my own bills. It wasn't that January was like, peace out. Like I still had to, pay for school and electric and gas and all the things that I had at the time. But I knew that I had to trim that down, and I had a super laughably simple spreadsheet that tracked every dollar we made, the amount of my bills, like personal bills, and then what the gap was of consulting revenue. And month by month, that gap started to get smaller and smaller until finally I was like, hey, I think in 2 months I could quit consulting and I can just do this full time. And so another piece that I'm thinking of is like knowing your numbers and knowing your business plan is really essential for focus as well. And if you don't actually have that established, as basic as my spreadsheet was, it was like the guiding torch in many, many challenging times to say, no, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. You're not going to get into services that aren't what we're selling. And that kept me accountable. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, they have a great idea, they have a great product, but they're not building out a 12-month or a 6-month plan and just saying, look, let's go. And so it's challenging, right? And no one's ever perfect. And even at our scale, we struggle with focus every day, just in, much different areas aside from the business strategy itself.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And I appreciate you kind of sharing your thought process and what you were going through that. And obviously the bigger picture of having that plan, following it, understanding your numbers makes a lot of sense. The next thing that we kind of like to get into here is talking about key ingredients. So within entrepreneurship, what are 3 things that have made you successful thus far?
Well, to build on what we were talking about, focus, that's the number one. Amongst my friend circles, I have a brand of I don't talk a big game. I just get busy and I do the work and I say what I'm going to do. So consistency and focus is absolutely key. And there's a phrase that I use, and I'm sure I haven't coined it, but I haven't seen it anywhere else, like the compound interest of focus. So if you think about this value, like every financial advisor and every financial guru talked about the power of compound interest. Keep your money in, let it grow. And over time, it just has this hockey stick takeoff. And I feel like focus is the same way. The early years, it's really challenging to feel like you're getting a result in your focus. But if you stay in your lane and you keep iterating and you keep making things better and you just keep on the path, the results start to compound because all of that effort starts to stack. And I see other colleagues of mine who jump from business to idea to business to idea, and they're never escaping the phases that they were at 1 or 2 years ago. It's not that their businesses aren't good ideas. It's not that they're not talented people. It's just that they are unable to stay consistent over time. I did not really feel successful at Design Pickle probably until year 3 or 4. I mean, it was like, I was still worried the wheels were going to fall off the bus every night when I went to bed. And so like, think about that 3 to 4 years of focus until I kind of am like, okay, I think we got this. Like, and at any point in that time, I could have jumped ship, done something else. And I have some funny stories of really distracting things I did during that time, buying other companies that weren't actually related to what we did. So focus is key. And then I'm sure some of your guests have talked about this, but it never can be repeated enough, is a niche. And it's like a cousin of focus. Focus for you is like your time and your effort and your business plan, but the niche is like, who are you actually selling to? And whenever I've been asked, like, what would you do differently about Design Pickle? The answer is always, I would have picked just like some crazy specific vertical to go after. Like like animal dentists or something, like just like, we are the graphic design company for the orthodontic community of pets, and just owned it. And just every dollar would have been 10 times more valuable because no one's competing in that space. And we could have just, and by the way, I just made that up, but now it probably could be a good idea. For someone out there, here you go. Here's your free idea of the week. So it's like, that is the thing for me, is like you are focused, but then your business and the resources you have, which are always limited, they're always limited. You get the most value. And when you go wide market, you're competing against like Progressive Insurance for the same eyeballs. But if you go narrow inside of your clients and everything, that is going to be key to maximizing that. And then my third item is like, build a great team, but also don't overhire early on. So kind of two items inside of that. Some of the bigger hires that I would say the bigger mishires, I wouldn't say they're mistakes because we learned a lot inside of it, but the mishires were all about the timing of the hire. Hiring someone that's too seasoned, too high salary, too broad when we needed specific, too expecting them to figure something out when we didn't even know how to figure it out ourselves. And so, but with that said, my growth would have never happened without building a team. So you really have to invest, and you have to be comfortable with that investment. One of my closest friends in the world right now is struggling because he is an independent creator, and he also has this crazy software company. But every time he's like, that's like the coolest productivity, meditation, wellness app that he's like bootstrapped himself, and it's awesome. But he also does like high-end video marketing work. But when he's in the video marketing work, nothing's happening with the software company. And like, this is a solo entrepreneur example, but this is the same at any stage size business, 5, 10, 20, 100 people. Like, if you're not continually to add people and create that expansion of your knowledge and the skills, and then getting people who are better than you, you will never grow because you will simply be stuck and capped at where you're at. And so I did have a few mishires, but I've had far more great hires over the years to be able to grow and to take things on and kind of build my company along the way.
Love those ingredients. I want to go back to the topic about niching down. So what vertical are you guys in a specific vertical or niche right now in terms of what you guys are going after?
Well, no, yeah. I mean, we have 10 industries we've decided. So like, in the grand scheme of all industries, we are only focused on 10. So maybe that is a vertical, but no, I mean, it's still a challenge for us, to be honest. Design is like a commodity for any business. It's like email. It's like electricity. Everyone can use it. So it's not like it's going away. And with the whole onslaught of AI and generation tools, we're seeing our value become even more present because these tools are making design more accessible to people, but people at the end of the day don't really want to become a designer. So we're going to be needed in just different ways down the road. Yeah. I will say, out of everything, like, we do have our largest client cohort, kind of by accident, is going to be agencies. Like, anyone who's selling and using creativity for their own business and making money around it and providing it to their clients. I think that's just a natural model that fits within, we're a super dependable, scalable, reliable design output resource. It's like we sell gas and our largest clients are gas stations. It's like, it makes sense for that. So agencies tend to be our largest slice of our client cohort, but at that, even there, it's only like 24%. So we have a much, the rest of it is just anyone and everyone.
Yep. Awesome. No, I appreciate you expanding on that. And as we kind of transition into the overarching entire entrepreneurial journey, we compare that to just the beer brewing process in general. So obviously, great beer doesn't happen overnight. Talk to us about some of the ups and downs. I know you've kind of touched on some of that of your journey, but if you can give a couple of like the highlights of the highest of the highs, and then some things that were like the lowest of the lows in your journey thus far.
Yeah. Well, the highest of the highs, I think one thing that comes to mind has been, we've always operated from core values and a mission and a vision statement from the early days. And that was what I learned from my agency days, because I would actually help create those for companies way too late in the game, where they were like, hey, we don't even have these, let's create these. And then you're trying to like get this 200 person organization that just doesn't care to get aligned. And it's way too late. Like the horse is out of the barn. And so, or the horse is out of the stable. And so like, I created those like just in the moment for our company and by myself, and they've changed over the years. They're kind of long now. So if you're like, what are they? I'd be like, actually, I need to kind of look them up because we just updated them last year and they're like more descriptive. So they actually are more valuable because rather than one random word, like straightforward used to be one of them. Like we have like, give it to me straight. So we've like actually expanded out on them, but you can go to designpickle.com/about to read all about them. So like that was a win from the beginning. It just helped us keep the line with who we bring in the company, how we operate, how we hold each other accountable. And I always feel too, another superpower of ours has definitely been in our ability to build a company culture. Now it's been challenged at the times, and we, like we have had to hire, we've had to fire, we've had to adjust our workforce over the years dramatically to adjust for economics, COVID, like all of these things. And so I wouldn't say that we're like the perfect example of just this, we're not like a hot yoga studio where everyone loves it all the time. And, you have people who've been coming for 40 years and it's like the quintessential, fandom that exists, but we do care. And I think as a business, we've always made an outsized investment in that, whether that's getting our teams together every year, which was actually a newer investment we started a few years ago. We've always been a remote company since 2015. So it's like investing in one-on-one time, investing in learning opportunities, benefits that employees have for the company, which is like education credits they can use on their own. So are we perfect? No, but we've always thought about it. And we've always wanted to make sure that the people feel like there is a culture here that has value to where they're at. I touched on one of the challenges. The lows was like hiring too early. I have had close friends that I have hired that I've had to say goodbye to, some pretty quickly because it was like, I love you, you're the best, but this is the wrong role. And that is something that I learned, over time, that it is much more important not to hire. Like when you're first starting, you're just like, hey, you breathe, you can use your hands. Like, I used to play basketball with you. Cool. Come on, let's go. Let's figure this out. And that's fantastic because you need a lot of trust. You need a lot of utility players. You need people to kind of do a little bit of everything. But as we've grown, that personal connection, while powerful, actually doesn't trump specificity and verticalization and finding the lanes. And so some team members had an extraordinary run here, but we had to say goodbye, or other team members I recruited. And when I say team members, I mean friends, like high school homies, and it didn't work out. And it's like that. I wouldn't say it was the lowest of the low from like it wasn't dramatic for the business or them or me. It was just like really challenged my beliefs as a leader. Like, do I suck at this? Like, what's going on? Like, I felt like really discouraged that these moments happened because it affects people's lives, and then it affects people's lives that you really care about. So, and I'd say the other challenge is like, we are, for better or for worse, kind of at the mercy of macroeconomic conditions. And that's always been a big challenge, like with COVID, with recession, with consumer confidence, we really feel those impacts. And so it comes with the territory, right? Like, I think everyone who's out there kind of can say the same thing, but it is something that I think for entrepreneurial strategy, especially people listening who are creating at an earlier stage, is these things become big issues as you get larger and larger. And so are there ways to create a business or a product or service or a contract model or whatever it might be that can accommodate and absorb some of the ups and downs of the world, of the economy, and make it a little less bumpy? And for us, like, for example, we really have been pushing heavily into contract terms for our clients. Like, you can sign up for a month, you can cancel after a month. Like, it's super flexible, or we'll give you a discount if you commit for a year. And that we find helps smooth out those client retention bumps. And it was super valuable to the client because they're getting a better price on the service.
Yeah, no, what I'm pulling from what you're saying as multiple things, but really innovation, listening to the market, and then making changes based on what the market is telling you. I think a lot of times people start throwing stuff out at the market, and then they're confused why something's not working or resonating. And then they're also not willing to change, where you're like, hey, we're seeing these trends. We're seeing it take a hit on client retention. Why don't we offer the convenience of month to month, but give incentives on going long term to protect us and give value to the clients? So I love that. I love that. And I think most companies struggle, or they're really, really late to the process of doing that. So one of the other things that we kind of talk about here is the fermentation and conditioning within the beer brewing process. So figuring out what the final result of a beer tastes like, and how you can make that better. What's a lesson you've learned, and it might be a lesson we've already talked about, but that you would share with an entrepreneur that's just getting started, that's looking to save years worth of mistakes down the line?
Well, it's one I have been coaching several close friends of mine, and that is to get into a peer accountability group of like staged entrepreneurs. So my journey, I actually did really well with my agencies in the latter years when I joined a group. It was called EO Accelerator. So it's an offshoot of Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a nonprofit organization for businesses of $1 million or up in revenue. EO Accelerator is, I think the threshold's like 250K. And the model of both groups is, let's put you in a room once a month in person, like locally with local entrepreneurs, non-competitive. So you're in with a HVAC guy and a construction guy and a, home services person or whatever. I was always the lone creative guy, and still kind of am in these groups. And you get together once a month and you talk about life. You talk about problems. You learn. You bring in speakers. There might be 50 or 100 people in this organization in your chapter locally, and every month there's social events, and then there's learning events, and you get to see inspirational speakers, and then there's national conferences. And so when I started hanging out and being around, and also being held accountable to my small group, which was like never before. Like if you're starting out and you've quit or you're doing your own thing, you were like the boss of the boss. Like you have no accountability at all. You may not even have employees to be accountable for. You just have like contractors or your idea or a partner or spouse or whatever. And even that, you've burned that bridge. Like your partner or spouse hates you because you're going down this crazy path. So you're just kind of avoiding them anyway. So like joining these small groups and these and with like-sized and like-staged businesses, even if they had nothing to do with software, even if they had nothing to do with the design, I learned so much, and I saved so much time. And I've continued in those groups year over year. Now I'm in a group called YPO, and it's the same thing. Every month I get together with 7 other guys and gals. And we talk about business. We talk about family. We talk about health. We talk about all the things that you kind of talk about or think about. But it's in a different container that's about giving. It's about teaching. It's about growth. And when you're talking about some challenge like your marketing funnel, everyone in the room understands what's going on, versus the 3-year-old birthday party in suburbia USA when you're like, kill me now. No one here is even running a business. I'm just wanting to get out of here. Like what's like this bounce house place is so boring. Not to say that I've ever had that experience before, but like the day-to-day social obligations we have don't put us in a room of entrepreneurs. We're usually in the minority unless we're at a conference or at some specific event. So this is a huge, huge hack I've had, and I've continued to invest in peer groups, can always invest in coaching and coaches, and just continually, not to say that these, like anyone in the room knows more about what I do, but some of them are much further down the path. And it doesn't have to be in my space. Like if they've had employee problems are employee problems, and I can vent and I can talk. If they've dealt with supply contractors or shipping or whatever, like it's all the same stuff. And we have to get out of our head that somehow our business doesn't suffer from, we're unique, we're special. We're not going to learn anything from these people. I mean, one of the dudes that I've learned the most from early on ran a physical therapy company, but he was just like a killer entrepreneur. And like had nothing to do with my business at all. but he taught me so much. And so that's the hack. You want to shave off years of your growth, put yourself in one of these groups, find yourself in an environment where you have people who you're held accountable to, and you can hold them accountable as well.
That is extremely powerful. And it's something that multiple guests I've had on the podcast preach. I preach that all the time. I joined my first type of mastermind a month into entrepreneurship because everybody said that I was following entrepreneurs, but I was doing it kind of as a side hustle. And then they're like, no, if you want to condense time, get in those rooms to be able to get access to people and information and education. That's years beyond where you're going to have to figure this stuff out on your own. So I love that you touch on that. Super, super powerful, and glad to hear other people talk about it as well. So as we kind of finish up the episode today here, Russ, the last thing that we talk about is distribution. So within the beer brewing, that is taking the beer to market and selling it. So talk to us about what is next for Design Pickle, and if you have any special projects or things that you're going to be working on as an entrepreneur or personally here in the future.
Well, I touched on it before, but AI and generative creation is something I am breathing, living, talking about, writing about nonstop. And it's huge. I'm sure most people on this call or this podcast have heard about something. It's national news all the time. You don't even have to own a business to understand that it's coming. And you might think, Terminator Judgment Day is upon us, or you might think that everything's going to be free and easy. There's probably an answer somewhere in between those two data points. But the idea for us is we firmly believe people are going to always be part of the equation. And I challenge anyone to prove my point is for your next design deliverable, whatever you need to be done, go to Dolly, go to Midjourney, go to any of these generative creation tools and just give it a go. A few hours later, you're going to be really frustrated and you're still not going to have what you need. However, if what you need is a, unicorn paddle boarding on top of Mount Everest that looks like a Picasso style painting, they got you covered. That's obviously a really easy thing that you can create with these things. But more than likely, that's not what your brand needs. More than likely, that's not what your sales team needs. And more than likely, it's not what your clients need. So the way we look at it is these tools are going to be helpful, but there's going to be a gap. And so we're actually introducing very specific versions, leveraging big technologies of how to use these tools in the creative process. Design Pickle from day one has been a seamless creation process. You have your request form, you have your file management, you have your request management. The people are built in. You don't have to go hire anyone. You have revisions and edits and updates and annotations. It's all in one spot. So it's super easy to manage one request or 100 requests or 1,000 requests and just go through it. So we're looking at each point in that stage and say, you know what? Big, huge generative AI is cool and gimmicky, but if we take a piece of it and put it right here, this is going to be really helpful. If we take another piece of it and put it right here, this is going to be really helpful. And so we're at the tail end of what we're building, and we're going to be launching this privately to clients. And all it's designed to do is increase the effectiveness of a client to communicate what they want, what they need, what they're trying to get from a creative, and for a creative to also create quicker, faster, ideate, put ideas out there. And then if we can get them to that moment of understanding, that moment where you're like, yes, I love it. This is great, which sometimes happens out of the gate, but other times it happens after a while. But if we can make after a while more often right away, then that means we are being more productive as a company. We're using these tools in a smart way. And it's not just about gimmicky memes to your buddies. It's actually about using them that helps a business get what they need. So that's what I'm most excited about coming out later this year. Things are in pilot stage right now. I don't know if I can mention or not, but I will, because I don't know if the marketing team listens to me, is video editing. So we do motion graphics right now, and we have successfully completed a pilot around video editing. Short form, we're not going to create your next Academy Award documentary, but this is about marketing content, short form content, and combined with our existing service of motion graphics, this is a killer feature. Flat rate, that plan's actually $1,600 a month, but you get everyday video editing, everyday motion graphics. You can just really crank and produce a lot. So I'm excited. It's a new generation of innovation, and a lot of it's in our space of design. But I am continually reminded that our value is not about the tools. Our value is about the time, and our clients value their time. They don't want to be a designer. And it doesn't matter if it's Neuralink brainwave reading devices or DALL-E, OpenAI DALL-E, it still takes time. And we're going to help offload the function of creation, the function of content and design so that our clients can focus on what they do best.
Love that. And love that you guys are adding the video component, because I know that's stuff that I talk with people all the time that are like, man, I want to do the short form content, but I have no idea where to start, nowhere to go, all those different things. So super excited to see you guys continue on that path, continue to innovate in your industry and get to that next level. Russ, where can people connect with you and learn more about Design Pickle, whether it's websites, social media, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So for Design Pickle, absolutely just designpickle.com. Super straightforward. For me, the best way is to go follow me on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Russ Perry. I'm basically Russ Perry on everything imaginable, with the exception of TikTok. I was a little late to the game on that one, but I don't use anything else other than really LinkedIn right now. So that's going to be the best spot. And yeah, like if you have a question or anything, just shoot me a note on LinkedIn and love to help.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Russ, thank you so much for coming on the episode today. It was a great time.
Thanks so much. Yeah, take care.
And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning in to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.